Yeah, officer, don't take me away. All right. Looks like we are live now. I'm here with Tom, Paul, and Brian of Is.
Hello, Ron.
Welcome, guys.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Oh, no problem. Like I said off that I spoke with John and Laura the last time, and then I'll get you guys this. Actually, we got a little bit of a history. Someone from the band back in 2002 sent me I Move, and I think it was a few months according. I think you released it in April, and then sometime in the summer is when I got a package from you guys in the mail, and it was kind of cool because I didn't. I mean, I had first started doing CD reviews at the time, and so it was kind of neat. I mean, I was in California at the time, in LA, and I was getting a CD from a band in New York. I couldn't believe that. That was so. It was one of the cool moments, and then here we are 20 years later, and you guys just released this, and I got some feedback here. Yeah, back in was it November? You guys released this nice anniversary deluxe edition, 2 CD, and I gotta say, whatever you guys did to it, you just made something great even better.
Oh, that's so nice of you to say, Ron. Thank you.
And I mean, when I first listened to that was kind of, up until that point, I didn't hear too much modern prog because most of it was usually kind of retro sounding, and here it was the more modern sound to it, and I'll tell you right up into the instrumental. It feels like, is that one kind of on the lines of like side 2 of Abbey Road? Is that kind of, because I notice how they fade right into each other, all the songs.
Yeah, well, that was purposely done. I'd like to say that I actually don't remember how it was planned out. The songs were written. What are those songs? The first song is Spinning Round, I Move. The third song is Weak Little Lad, I Already Know, and then I Want to Win, right? And then the Something True. And I cannot remember if I jockeyed the keys around to make sure they fit. I really think it was just kind of by chance that the particular song ended in the right key and the next song was also in the right key. But yeah, it's like the second side of Abbey Road. Absolutely.
Yeah, I just liked how it flowed, and it's like it's like you kind of like got the audience. You got to listen to it. It's like you can't just listen to one track and then go off and do something. It's like you got to sit right through, and then once you're right to that point, it's like you're so into the album that you just gotta finish it, it's just like, you can't just, I mean, that's one of the things with progressive rock is, because the bands make albums as opposed to singles, you have to invest the time, whether it's, 43 minutes or 73 minutes, you got to invest the time to listen to the whole album, so
Sure.
get
Uh,
the whole deal.
Well, if you take those 4 or 5 songs separately and you end them separately, they really are, I mean, they're not really your traditional progressive rock songs, right? So by putting them together, you are, for lack of a better word, you're making it conceptual automatically, and you're making it, as you just said, more interesting. You hear one song and the next one begin, and you don't know, is this a new song? Where one ends, the other one begins. So I think those are like pop songs, and those were purposeful pop songs, but we kind of wanted to, make it our own, and also there's a storyline there, so we connected them.
Right. Yeah, and then the next I got to see you at I think almost all the time that you've been to the CalProgs. That was, there, right, get to see, listen to this CD, and then get to see the band live. That's a treat right there in itself. So it's almost like like I've been, you guys began a lot sooner than that because you had the first album, which it's a completely different sounding. I was just listening to it the other day, and it has, some of the songs have a little more angular sound to it, and this one has a little more, I wouldn't say accessible, but it's more cheery, more upbeat.
I think
Go ahead, Brian.
I was just going to say that, it definitely, there's a journey with the theme and a journey with the character. And so I think it does, there definitely goes to some darker places in the middle there, but at the end we wanted it to be sort of a positive message, an uplifting message. So yeah, I mean, it starts with this sort of the poppier sound, and then I think it ends with such a positive, uplifting sound, but it gets a little dark there in the middle. But I think that the part of what you're probably addressing is the fact that this was really the first fully collaborative album we had done. So Sliver of a Sun was our first outing as a band, and Brems was not fully in the band yet, and so he was contributing, but he was not on everything, and some of the songs were either partially written or fully written when we really formed as a band. So while we're very proud of Sliver of a Sun, I think I Move is where we really figured out what our sound was together as a band. So I think that might be part of why it sounded so different, because we were all kind of contributing ideas and shaping what we wanted it to be. And the concept shaped a lot of the sound as well, I think. So, I think you guys agree with that?
I agree with
Brems?
that, Brian. And I Move is a great memory for me because, as you say, that was me joining the band full time, maybe a couple of years before it. But I was a guest on the first album, which was lovely. But I Move is special because that was my first full album as a full member of the band. So it's quite a special memory for me,
And Ron, you mentioned Angular, and John, my brother, played electric guitar on maybe half of the songs or 40% of the songs, and his style is extremely different than Paul's style. I would say that he has more of an angular electric guitar style, and Paul brought in a lot more melodies, and that, to use your word, Ron, it brings a more cheery, upbeat, melodic kind of feel to all the songs.
Yeah, and then to talk about, you know, the anniversary edition. I mean, you have that whole second side full of, you know, amazing stuff, acoustic versions of the songs, and some live versions. And I distinctly remember. I don't remember which CalProg it was where you did and I don't remember the Yes song that you did, but it's like where uh, the promoter there had all the bands, they had to do a cover tune.
Cover. Mhm.
Yeah, it was, it was cool, but I don't know if it was something that was in part of your contract to do, but if it, you just kind of left it up to you guys, you know, not only you, but the other bands, it was just kind of unusual, especially after the first CalProg.
Well, Tom, you might know about this more than I do, but I think the first few CalProgs, he did ask each band to do a classic prog song. And I think the intent was to create a through line. So I guess I don't know what the audience was. I don't know how many of the audience at that time was current with the newer prog bands, or if I think he felt that a lot of people would come with only the knowledge of the original 70s era and wanted to sort of create a connection with the new bands and the old bands by us each doing a cover. I don't think he continued to ask bands to do that every year, but I think the first year, maybe first 2 years, that was the request.
Couple of years. Uh-huh.
Well, that makes perfect sense. Tie it in so people will know, that was then, this is now, and then
Mhm.
in the future,
And I think it was a way for each band to also say, here's something that influenced us, because I don't think anybody was picking something outside of the bands that were, the most important to them. So, obviously, Yes is, I think that the sound of Yes is evident in what we do, even though we're not trying to sound derivative of Yes. I think there are many times you can point to, that definitely have a Yes influence in their sound.
I think that's a lot of it I notice is in the guitar playing and the bass.
Mm-hmm.
And I like how you guys have the combination of the acoustic and the electronic drum. Again, it's like the kind of like the old with the new sort of thing.
Well, and it's interesting because on this mini tour we're doing around it, I've been playing the V drums for the drum set along with the Octapad, the Roland pad I usually use to supplement an acoustic kit. But this time we've been playing all electronic because I'm thinking back to when we recorded this, and part of the idea of what the electronic drums represented, sort of like, this artificial electronic, maybe sort of mechanical side of the music that would then have this sort of sense of tension and release when acoustic drums broke out. So I think, later albums, because it wasn't thematically as important, we probably err more on the side of acoustic drums, but we definitely made a conscious choice to include a lot of electronics on I Move.
Yeah, and I did something, I'm not normally like to use that the Spotify, but I put it out there and I showed it to John, just a little like my introduction to the band. So, and I always put a disclaimer on something like that if you like what you hear, go buy the CDs, the merch, the digital downloads, whatever, support these guys because they're not, every CD sold is more money in your pocket, so you go to finance the next album
That's
or the
exactly right.
next or the next fours.
Mhm.
But I like to get people into it, and it seems like right now that's one of the better ways to get people into it because people like the convenience of the of Spotify.
Streaming.
Generally I don't like it if people use that as their primary library, just as a good way to sample something and see if they like it, and if they do, seek out the CD or the digital download, and if the band comes to their area, go see them live. I like that's the little thing I can do, just to kind of help out because bands such as yourself has really been a huge part of my life, and I like to give back as much as I can.
Well, thank you for that, Ron. First of all, we're
That's
really
great.
happy that that our music means something to you. But we also thank you for trying to get other people turned on to the music and for supporting us. Some bands, and I think we're going to be doing this at some point on Spotify. They have I forget what it's called, but you can give to the artist. I don't know if you've noticed that on Spotify, which I think is a good feature to have. If
Oh,
you're
yeah.
listening to it, you could just throw $10 to the artist or something.
Yeah, I saw that. There was quite a few of them now uh, that are doing that, and I think that's a great way that, okay, if you're not going to buy the whole album, at least show some appreciation,
Right.
I
So
think
with that, there.
I was just gonna say, I think for a band like us, that digital exposure is very important. So we really do appreciate that spreading the word that way, because there are only so many places we can be, there are only so many tours we can do. So the more people we reach, the better off we are. So thank you.
Oh yeah, the other thing that I've been mentioning to other bands uh, is ever since lockdown, uh, there's some bands that have done lockdown videos, and there's some very few that have actually done live streaming their concert. And if you put aside the lockdown aspect of it, a live stream can actually reach all your fans,
Mhm.
which is something hopefully maybe the programs and the technology will get better, because I think people are starting to see that's something that just an added, let's say you rent a hall that has 500 people, but there is maybe 2,000 that want to come see you, but either you're all sold out, so they can see it on, watch it on their device at home, and still support the band at the same time.
Mhm.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
at some point in the future, I'm sure we'd be interested in doing something like that.
Yeah, I think one band that comes to mind that actually did it, and then they released it on Blu-ray was the Pineapple Thief.
Pineapple Thief.
Yeah, they did. I think it was in late 2020 or early 2021. They did something. I think they just had probably their family as the audience,
Mhm.
you know, and maybe some close friends or something like that. But I'm not sure. But it's just something that kind of gives you a more exposure that way.
Yeah, I think any kind of technology we can use to get ourselves out there, we love. It just I don't think it's worked out for us in the past. I think there was one venue we did that had talked about live streaming the show, and I don't remember why that didn't happen. But yeah, that's definitely something to look into for the future.
Oh yeah,
Pandemic just changed how we look at how we do this. All of us we've had to get innovative.
yeah, that's the one thing with the bands. There was some bands that just basically just put a halt to everything that they were doing and just concentrated on their personal lives. And there's some that just went headlong right into thing and created more music. And I think we started seeing more albums, at least that I could notice, albums released in 2022 than some the past couple of years before. Obviously 2020 wasn't a big year for album releases, but 2021 started, and I think 2022 got bigger. And I think this year we're going to see a lot more, because I noticed some bands have done double albums, and in the case of a band in Tennessee that did basically a trilogy. So, I think there's going to be a lot of stuff out there. And then I noticed a lot of the venues were booked from before 2020. So I think trying to find venues is probably maybe a little difficult.
Yes, besides the venues that struggled and went under, unfortunately, I think the venues that survived are really, it looks like most of them are kicked back in and are really gung-ho about bringing live music back to everybody. And I'm very excited about that as a fan. And of course, with we're just happy to be out performing live shows again. The energy in these shows has been so good, and part of it's us being so excited to play, and part of it's, I think, just audiences so excited to have live music to hear again. So it's a good time. Just praying everybody stays healthy and we can avoid any kind of backtracking with the COVID situation. But knock on wood, everybody stays healthy. Right. We're on top of this pandemic, that we're back to a smart way of doing live entertainment again.
Exactly. And also too, is like I've mentioned several times to people, especially people going to the concert, and I said, remember, the people up on stage, you want them to come back and want to continue doing the touring. So let's keep them as healthy as possible. I know a vast majority of the prog community have taken steps to get vaccinated and boosted, but every once in a while you get something that slips through. It can never be 100%.
Yeah.
But
well, it's just been really great to be back out, and you just, there's no, I mean, again, I love the idea that you can do a live stream, but nothing beats the energy of being face to face with your audience and getting that immediate feedback. It feels really great, and it's fun to revisit this album. Obviously, we've played a lot of these songs throughout the years, so it's not that we've not played any of them, but to play all of them and play all of them in album order has been really fun. It reminds us of a time when the band was still very relatively young, and it's just kind of a nice reminder of how far we've come and how long we've been at this together, and been a very positive band situation where there's so much love and enjoyment for what we do, and not like the usual band politics stuff. So it's fun to celebrate that, along with the fans who have been such a part of us being able to continue doing it.
Yeah, you guys have some from what I've been seeing on social media, have the most positive fans out there, the most loyal fans. They stick with you since, some of them probably since day one, stuck with you through all the years, and gone to see your live shows when they can, bought your CDs, bought any other merch, shirts or whatnot. It's very few that I've noticed that have that kind of a loyalty, fan loyalty. And
Well, it's kind
you guys,
it's kind of like they found us, but we also found them. In the early
Right.
days, I don't mean to interrupt you, Ron. In the early days, we played a lot of shows to audiences that were not progressive rock fans. A lot of shows from like 1996, 97 to about the time of the first Prague Day and the first Cal Prague. And when we started to get dribs and drabs of Prague fans coming, I think that we were just as happy to meet them as they were happy to meet us.
right. Yeah, that's like I said, I think was it 2004 was the first Cal Prague.
That's
That
correct.
what?
That's right.
Before that,
And-
there was a Prague West, which we played at in 2002.
Oh yes, I remember that. And actually before that there was something called Prague Fest
Mhm.
that was mostly LA based, from 93 up into 2000. So it's and a lot of, there was a lot of great bands that played those festivals. I missed Prague West because I was a little held up in bed during that time, but I was happy that someone did that Cal Prague, because at least there was some Prague in the Southern California area. And
Yeah,
it was only one day, but it was still it was good.
those two shows, I think it was Prague Day 2000 to 2002 and Prague West 2002. Back to the fans, to meet the fans was just such a pleasure for us. I know Brems and Brian will agree with this. We enjoy talking to the fans, and Ron, what you said about loyal fans, we do have the best fans. His fans are the most loyal and nicest and best fans. So thank you so much for always supporting us and coming to our shows.
Oh yeah, it's the least any of them can do, outside of buying the albums, and then to go and see that live, because like you were saying, getting the energy from the fans, it's we feed off of each other, the fans cheer louder, which makes you want to put a little bit more power into the whole thing, and then we go continue. It's like a endless cycle. So it's like and it was nice to see modern prog bands. I never got to see any of the classics. all I saw were the bands that were brought in to the Los Angeles area, the various progressive rock festivals. So, you know, and then of course local bands, you know, they're playing at different little clubs here and there, you know, which was
Mhm.
kind of cool. But the West Coast scene was nothing compared to the East Coast. East Coast seemed to be a little bit more. I think it's more. The fans were a little more concentrated,
Mhm.
whereas in the Southern California, everybody's so spread apart. You know, hundreds miles apart from each other in some areas.
Right.
Yeah, there's definitely, I think, an ease of transportation from like a New Jersey to a New York or Connecticut that you have one state that is longer and larger than all of those states combined. It makes it a little hard to pick a location that feels central that everybody in like California can meet. You know, for some of them it's a big commitment to make a show. So yeah, it depends on where the venue is. Our last show before the pandemic was in Santa Monica, and we did very well with that one. We got a good turnout for that. So you know, I do know that the California proggers are here. You know, I know the West Coast has an interest, but yeah, it's always, you know, a challenge. You try to make sure you're booking a show that is convenient enough to people, so that not only do you have a nice room full of people who are going to enjoy the show, but you know that the venue, everybody's is feeling that they made a worthwhile investment in the band. So I think that goes into how we choose when and where we play, but you know, we're always happy to try to play for anybody anywhere if we can make it work, you know.
Oh wow, Santa Monica. Yeah, that's
Mhm.
I used to live there in the early 2000s, and that is, I mean, I noticed after I left there was a lot more, you know, and especially a lot more local bands that are up and coming. And so where did you guys last play on this tour so far?
I'm sorry, I lost a bit of what you said. What did you say on this
Okay,
last tour?
yeah, on this last tour, what area were you guys playing at?
So the last show we just did was in Danbury, Connecticut. So we're mostly doing East Coast shows for this. We did a Chicago show before that a few weeks ago. But we are doing New Jersey next. We did I don't know, were we in Boston proper? We were near Boston.
We were in Norwood, Massachusetts. Norwood.
Thank you. So yeah, not a full tour, not an extensive US tour, but we're still actually completing the next CD. So the time we're doing to do this show is keeping us from putting the finishing touches on that CD, which is close, but we can't extend the tour too much because we got to finish up. So we'll probably be back out on the road very soon after that to promote that new CD. But we're excited to get that one finished as well. Some great stuff on it.
As I'm sure the fans are too. You know, it's I noticed it's like there's some bands that, you know, before the pandemic were putting out albums like almost once a year, and then some every 2 years, and you know, and I noticed the further they go apart, people start to wonder where the band is, you know, and then you got oh gosh, the one that I was telling you about in Tennessee, Glass Hammer. You know, they released basically 2020, 2021, 2022. So you know, and they're not even touring as of yet. You know, they'll be probably after their next album, or they might just stay as a studio band. You know, they got different things going on, especially in that Tennessee. It's like it seems to be like the new LA and the new New York area. It's like there's a lot of, especially in Nashville, like a big hub there right now of every kind of music. You know, I mean they're not just country.
Mhm. Well, I think Tom probably should speak to this, but I would say that I think we have never struck a comfortable balance where we can be devoting equal attention to recording and playing live shows. We can do both, you know, a little bit at the same time, but we pretty much can look at our history as saying we were spending this time recording or we were spending this time touring. It's just because of the energy and time involved with the work. So, you know, it's always a little bit of, you have to make a choice for one or the other. So because we had this I Move, you know, edition to promote, and we're very proud of it and it's very exciting, it was worth taking the time away from the recording to focus on doing some live shows around it. But we really are pretty close with this next CD. And so, you know, again, we have to make those choices. It's been really fun to play live, but I think our next round of focus and energy is going to be finishing the CD. Tom, is that an accurate?
Yeah, I mean, I think I could speak for John and myself in saying that there's always songs that are in demo form happening, you know, weekly almost. And I mean, I think John and I are at the point, and I know Brems is the same way, where like there's almost it's a happy thing that there's an overabundance of music. And at this point, it's a kind of a decision of what will make it onto the next album kind of thing. So it's a good problem to have. So Brian, yeah, I agree with you. The one thing that kind of never stops is the creation part of it, right? But the actual recording with band members, you know, not just me or John laying down demo things, it does take a chunk of time and mental energy. So it's difficult for us to focus on both at once. And I think that's the way it is with almost every band. I mean, bands usually make an album, they tour for a year, and then they make an album for 2 years and they tour. And it's hard to divide the energy for sure.
I can imagine, yeah. So where's your next stop on the tour?
I think, what is it, New Jersey, Brian?
That's right. What is the date? March 10th, is it? No, March.
The 4th, Brian, the 4th of March.
Thank you.
In Dover, New Jersey.
Yeah. It's about to look it up, so I wasn't giving bad information to our fans.
And then we'll take a break.
Take your spring break.
Yeah.
Want to say, Ron, for any fans who may be listening and watching, a great place to support us is Bandcamp. We actually just quote unquote re-released Paul's solo album, The Witness, and it was not on Bandcamp previously, so you can support us by visiting Bandcamp for sure.
Oh yeah, that's a fantastic place. I mean, it's from what I'm gathering, they really are. They work with the band very well compared to any other thing, you know, out there.
And we're very happy. And I think the company, the website itself has grown in the last 10 to 15 years. It really was originally, I think, for, you know, like garage band kind of bands. But now you got Peter Gabriel selling his music on it also.
Oh, wow. That's cool. That's cool. And then, ever since the pandemic, we had the Bandcamp Fridays, which is even better for you guys. You get the full amount.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
yes.
the fans have been really good about taking advantage of that. We really appreciate that. People do, the listeners, the consumers, if you will, then definitely understand the value of that to the bands and seem to, come out on those days and make those purchases. So every little bit helps, and we really appreciate it.
Oh yeah, and I like how you can. I mean, you put aside that Spotify thing. You can go there and sample the songs and be able to make up your mind whether or not you want to buy the album. I've gotten maybe since 2020 a good dozen solid purchases, and some of them were of bands I never heard of before.
Yeah.
And a lot of newer bands I'm finding on Instagram.
Interesting.
That's and some band, I think it's an easy way for them to promote themselves. I know a lot of bands use that TikTok, and I think TikTok and Instagram kind of like in a way kind of replace that old one called MySpace, because you're able to get your media out there quicker and news quicker that way, other than having people on your mailing list, which is that's still a major way to get your news from bands, is getting on their mailing lists.
I remember going to Tower Records and having these little listening stations where you could listen to the CDs. I think this is sort of like where we've evolved to, but it shows how far back we go. I would go into actual physical record stores and listen to the samples there to make a decision. But so the mentality is the same. The technology changes, that people like to know what they're getting into before they make a purchase. But yeah, I think social media is a good platform for it. It's an interesting platform because I guess much like early MTV, it's kind of reflecting the need to have a visual connected with the audio, so there's always that concern of well, how do we present something visually intriguing that's going to grab them as well as the music, so you want to pair something visual with the audio that is going to really grab people's attention. But it is interesting how bands are actually finding success through social media first, and then becoming actually performing musicians later. Some of them have no performance experience, but they have a whole studio in their home, and they have an online presence. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. So now that all the fans should be having this in their hands, are you putting more of the stuff up on Bandcamp? Because I recall just prior to the pandemic that you had like an EP that you had released.
I believe that's on Bandcamp right now. what's that called?
Half-Life. Half-Life.
Half-Life, yeah. So that's on Bandcamp.
We did some holiday singles that have been collected on Bandcamp, and I think that our goal is if we do more holiday music, which we would like to do, that we would continue to offer that on Bandcamp. So yeah, I think Bandcamp is definitely an ongoing effort with us, and gives you an outlet to release singles. Not that we're thinking of them in the old sense of singles, but just songs that are ready to be released, but maybe we don't have a full album's worth of material yet. But it's a way to continue to get stuff to the fans.
Right.
And if people purchase those, that money helps go towards us putting out full albums. So certainly it's a way of encouraging the process and contributing to the process so that we can keep making music. But we do love, at least I'm speaking for myself, but I think I'm reflecting the band. I like the idea of the albums because I think we do put a lot of energy into putting together a collection of music that has, if not a concept, it has sort of a thematic cohesion. The way that bands in the 70s and even 80s would think of albums as like one creative work from start to finish, and we're not thinking of like a single as standing on its own necessarily. I mean, we want them to be of a quality you can enjoy them on their own, but they often have greater weight when you hear them in the full album. So I think we'll always be committed to trying to release albums that way, because we like listening to albums like that.
Right. Yeah. That's to me the great thing that I like doing is when I get a new CD in the mail. I like putting it on headphones because then I can get immersed in the sound, and a lot of times I just I don't know. I kind of like if I dim the lights, it's I get I kind of get into a zone when I'm listening to the music, and it's I hear more things, and especially on this the anniversary edition, I'm hearing more sounds that I don't recall hearing on the original band.
Well, okay. So it was remastered, except there are a couple things which we didn't even really promote or publicize because it was so minuscule. So I believe there's 3 songs that I added some things to. So the first song is "Oh How It's Great." I added the guitar line that Brems plays, I superimposed a synthesizer on top of parts of that to just bring it out. I also superimposed on top of the piano a kind of pad to make the piano less brittle sounding. And also I felt like "Oh How It's Great" out of all of our songs maybe wasn't mixed the best. Now that's my fault. So I needed to do a little surgery to it. So a little bit is added to "Oh How It's Great." On "I Already Know," I felt like there wasn't enough synthesizer bass in the song. It was not mixed loud enough. So I added a second synthesizer bass on top of the pre-existing synthesizer bass. And I also added some very soft paddy strings way in the background, just to kind of like fill in the mix. Cause again, I felt it was very sparse. So "Oh How It's Great" did some surgery. "I Already Know" did a little bit of additions and surgery. And then the only other song that was added to was in the guitar solo during "I Want to Win," where I added some kind of pad on top of what I had already played because it was so far down in the mix. So those are the only 3 things that were new everything else was just remastered, I guess, very well by the guy who did the remastering.
Yeah, it just like I said early on, it's like you guys made a great album even greater.
Beautiful. Thank you so much,
Thank
Ron.
you very much, Ron. Thank you.
And it just feels brighter, obviously because of the remastering, there's, this is, I want to say, of the more independent bands, this is one of the better remasters that I've heard in a while. Obviously people, and I mean, even the big names, they get some remastering bad, so it's like, I guess it just depends on who's doing it.
Well, if we were going to remaster it, I mean, we decided, excuse me, that if we were going to remaster it and take the time to release it again, that it had to be different enough that the fans would want to have it, right? So it had to be different enough. And at least to our minds, it had to sound better. So it actually took us way longer than it was supposed to, because we went back and forth with the mastering for a long time. It wasn't like we gave it to the guy and he gave it back to us. There was a lot of back and forth. It's very important also that the songs, like here's a silly example. In Oh How It's Great, on the original one, what does that come? It comes from Mists of Dal Riata to Oh How It's Great. So Oh How It's Great is much softer than Mists of Dal Riata on the original. And we had that mastered, in one session. But this time, we went back and forth, because that's a good example of this. We raised that part. We also, through compression, we were able to raise that electric guitar introduction and make it more biting. If you follow me, it was kind of like soft and low, and adding the right compression to that lifted it and put it in your face. So I couldn't listen to Oh How It's Great before, and now I listen to it in a happy way, because it sounds the way it was originally supposed to.
Right. Yeah, that's the one thing I love about bands that remaster things, that they go back and, especially, 20 years later, with the modern technology, you can go back and say, well, wait, I could have done here, and here, something a little different, or add, like you said, you added in a few little things, but without destroying the integrity of the body of work.
Right. It was quote unquote painstakingly done, and not to reiterate the same thing, not to say the same thing, but it took way longer than it was supposed to, but I think it was worth it.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, I'm sure you guys been selling this really well, or I'm hoping so, because I know on Bandcamp Friday, when it was, I don't know if it was released on Bandcamp, but it was maybe a few days later. A lot of I saw a lot of mentions of people wanting to buy it, then, to help support you guys a little bit more.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
We've been very pleasantly surprised. I think we had adjusted expectations, because we knew it wasn't going to be perceived as a brand new CD, so we didn't know what to expect. So it's been very exciting that it's been doing as well as it has. But of course, we also do have that extra CD of material, which they took a lot of time to get sounding very polished. That was not easy work either, Tom. I mean, I wasn't there for the work, but I could tell in the end product that, these weren't, you didn't just grab these files and throw them on a CD. You must have spent a lot of time getting the mastering correct for these as well.
Well, thanks for noticing. And John and I, again, if you're going to put a CD of extras, you want it to be something that isn't just something. You see, So even the Beatles remixes, the extras that they put on, it's many times it's like you'll listen to it once, right? Oh, that's cool. There's the song without the vocals. Or that's cool. It's a different version of the song. But I wanted to, as much as possible, make it almost like a second new alternate I Move, almost like that. It's not exactly that, but some songs that didn't make it onto I Move, some songs that were recorded during the era, but again, didn't make it to I Move. Or a song like the Confusion Jam, which never was on an album, but the song Confusion was on Ampersand, which was really leftover songs from I Move. So we did play the song Confusion a few times in concert, but more we played the Confusion Jam, which was just a jam on the riff, on the keyboard riff. So things like that, just to do, give the listener something that they would want to hear more than once, not just like a trivial kind of, oh, that was cool, I'll never listen to that again kind of thing.
Right. And I like the acoustic versions that, kind of gives it a different feel for it,
I think with acoustic songs with this band, I mean, a lot of first demos or first takes of songs are done acoustically, and so many of the final products are so big and have so many parts to them, that it's kind of a breath of fresh air to hear them as just a song with maybe a very simple acoustic accompaniment. But I think that that's also when we know a song is really good. Like, you want the song to be satisfying and complete and moving and powerful as a simple acoustic thing. You don't want all the extra tracks, all the embellishments to be all there is to something. You want it to be able to move somebody in any form. So if a song works well as like a simple acoustic version of the song, and it's a good song.
Yeah, they sound fantastic.
Oh, thank you, Ron.
Well, is there anything else you guys like to say about the album?
Well, I mean, if you don't have it, you can support us by buying it. I think you won't be disappointed, especially by the second CD. If you want to hear some new things, a lot of new things on the second CD. I mean, you guys, you have anything to add?
I'll just say I think it sounds amazing. Tom and John, the work you guys put in to make it sound so much better is fantastic. Tom, I think it's a huge difference, a huge improvement on the original. And it's a beautiful album, and it's great to revisit it and to be playing some gigs around it. And I think the bonus material is phenomenal. And that's what I have to say about it.
Beautifully said, Brems. And I can't add anything else except that, we look forward to seeing some of you in New Jersey, and we'll see about that. We do want to get back out and play some more live, but we got to finish this new CD. But we'll see. We might be out for another run of shows before you know it. So look forward to seeing our fans again live.
Oh yeah. I'm very happy that you guys put this out. It was one of my favorite albums of the early 2000s, and you made my enjoyable listening experience even better, and I have to recommend this album to get if someone doesn't have any of their other albums. This is a perfect starting point, but get the anniversary edition, and you'll not be disappointed by that.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you, Ron. Thank you very much.
So much.
And I'd like to thank you guys for taking the time out of your Saturday to join me. and
A pleasure.
talk
Pleasure.
about I Move. And I look forward to new music and talking with you guys again in the future. You know,
Yep, that'd be
Thanks,
fantastic, Ron.
It'd be fantastic, Ron. Thanks for having us.
Thank
oh,
you
you're
so much.
welcome. And
Thank
I'll keep in touch with you guys, and we'll talk soon.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Ron.
Great.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Talk to you.